The first night it happened, Kara was asleep on the couch with an unfinished glass of wine and a half-watched documentary, still murmuring faintly in the background. The storm outside had calmed to a low rumble, and the power flickered, then stabilized. Just as her dream was shifting into something strange and forgettable, the television abruptly turned off, then immediately on again. The screen lit up with static. Bright, loud, hissing static. Kara sat bolt upright, heart pounding. The remote had fallen to the floor. She reached for it groggily, assuming maybe the storm had messed with the power or signal. But when she looked at the clock on the wall across from her, a cold chill slid down her spine. 3:17 nachts. She didn't think anything of it at first. Static wasn't uncommon during storms. She turned off the television, shut off the lamp, and went to bed. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same static, same bone-deep unease. By the third night, Kara was waiting for it. She didn't tell anyone. It felt silly. Haunted by a TV, but something fell off, as if the static wasn't just random fuzz. It carried a tone, a pitch, a rhythm. And in that sound, for just a second, she could swear she heard something whisper her name. At exactly 3:17 a.m., Kara lived alone in a quiet apartment complex in the outskirts of town, apartment 3B. It was a cozy, if slightly outdated unit on the third floor. She liked the solitude, the view of the forest beyond the parking lot, and the fact that her neighbors mostly kept to themselves. But that week, something had shifted. The air in her apartment began to feel heavy at night. The shadows and corners lingered longer than they should. Her cat, Luna, started hissing at the television even when it was off. On the fourth night, Kara stayed awake in the dark, sitting in her armchair across from the screen. She'd unplugged the TV earlier that evening, just to be sure. At 3:16, she checked the power cord, still out of the wall. At 3:17 a.m., the screen lit up anyway. Not static this time, just white. Bright, blinding white. Then it slowly faded to a flickering black and white video feed of her living room. From an angle that shouldn't be possible. It showed her, right then, sitting in her armchair, staring at the TV. Except the version of her on the screen wasn't looking at the screen. It was looking directly at her. Kara screamed and dove for the wall outlet. The TV cord was still out. She pulled it further away, heart slamming against her ribs, and stared at the screen again. Black. Just black. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she called her landlord, Mr. Donahue, an aging man who seemed more invested in crossword puzzles than property maintenance. He shrugged off her concerns. Power surges, maybe. Storm messed with the grid. You know how these older places are. When she pressed him about the wiring, he simply muttered something about weird luck and told her to buy a surge protector. She thought about calling someone else, an electrician, maybe, but she didn't want to sound paranoid. It's just a TV, a faulty power circuit, nothing more. That evening, she went to a big box store and bought a brand new surge protector, a security camera for peace of mind, and, just to be safe, a salt lamp and a bundle of sage. The cashier gave her a look like she wasn't the first person this week to make that combination of purchases. She got home, set everything up, lit the sage, and told herself it would all stop now. It didn't. That night, she hit record on the security camera and sat on the floor with Luna curled tightly in her lap. At 3:17 a.m., the TV clicked on. But this time, the video feed showed something else. A hallway. Long, narrow, and dimly lit. The wallpaper was peeling. The floors were warped. A single old-fashioned door stood at the far end with a small brass number, 3B, her apartment number. The camera feed lasted only 10 seconds before flickering out. But in those seconds, she saw something in the hallway, something tall and thin, barely visible in the shadows, standing just out of frame. Watching. When the video ended, the room was silent. And then, behind her, Luna hissed. Kara turned slowly, following the cat's gaze to the hallway that led to her bedroom. Nothing, but the air was cold, unnaturally cold. She didn't sleep again. The next day, Kara reviewed the security footage. Her eyes widened. The footage captured the moment the TV turned on, and it caught something else. For a fraction of a second, a reflection in the TV glass. A shape standing behind her. Something not human. She froze the frame. Enhanced it. The shape was tall, distorted, with elongated limbs and a blurred face. Like a shadow wearing the memory of a man. She emailed the footage to her friend Jordan, a freelance filmmaker and horror enthusiast. He called her within 10 minutes. "Tell me this is a prank," he said. "Kara, that thing in the reflection, that's not camera trickery. That's, whatever that is, it's real. Or at least not something I can explain. I swear I'm not faking anything," she whispered. "Don't stay there," he said. "Come stay with me for a few days. Just give yourself a break." She almost agreed, but she didn't want to abandon her home. If she left and something followed her, then what? No, she needed answers. That night, she did something she hadn't done since childhood. She drew the curtains, turned off all the lights, and sat in front of the television with a blanket and her grandmother's old crucifix clasped in her hand. She waited. At 3:17 a.m., the screen lit up. This time, the hallway was closer. The camera had moved forward down the corridor. The door marked 3B filled the screen, and it opened. There was no one on the other side, just darkness. And then from the speakers, a low, gravelly whisper, "Let me in." The TV powered down. Kara sat frozen, heart slamming against her chest. She stared at the screen long after it had gone black. Behind her, she heard the slow, soft creak of her front door unlocking itself. She bolted to her feet and ran to the door. It was still shut, locked, but the deadbolt was loose. Half turned. Luna hissed again, louder this time. Kara spun, and for just a moment, caught a flash of something in the TV reflection, tall, thin, bent, and unnatural angle. She lunged for the remote and turned the TV off, then unplugged it. Again, and this time, she didn't sleep. She sat on the couch, eyes fixed on the black screen, waiting for something else to move. Kara didn't leave the couch for hours. She watched the TV like it might spring back to life at any moment, even unplugged. Every sound in the apartment felt magnified. The ticking of the wall clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a dog down the street. But it was the silence that unnerved her most. A silence so thick it felt like something was pressing against her eardrums. She waited for the sun to rise before finally moving. Luna had curled up beside her sometime around 5, purring nervously as if trying to soothe them both. Kara's body was stiff, her mind frayed. But she was more certain now than ever. Something had attached itself to the apartment. To her. That morning, she sent the footage to a paranormal investigator she found online. His name was Reed Mercer, and his website looked just credible enough to convince her he wasn't a total fraud. Discreet investigations into the unexplained, it read. Scientific methods meet supernatural insight. She didn't expect a fast response, but within 2 hours, her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. I've seen this before. You need to leave that apartment immediately. I could be there tonight. Don't stay alone. R. Mercer." She stared at the message, unsettled by how certain he sounded. "I've seen this before." What exactly had he seen? Jordan called soon after, this time more serious. He'd spent the night analyzing the footage frame by frame. "Kara, that figure, the one in the reflection, it's not just some shadow. It's moving faster than it should. There's one frame where its head turns completely backward, but the body stays still, like it's watching you and the hallway at the same time." Kara said nothing. The image replayed in her mind, and her stomach turned. "Please come stay with me," Jordan begged. "I know you want to understand this, but I think you're in real danger." "I need to know what it wants," Kara said softly. "And if I run now, I don't think it'll matter." That night, Reed Mercer arrived. He was not what she expected. Late 30s, sharp eyes, soft voice, wearing a utility vest filled with strange tools and sensors. He carried a large duffel and an old leather notebook. "This isn't a typical haunting," he said immediately, scanning the apartment with a handheld EMF reader. "It's intelligent, and it's drawn to repetition. Patterns. He stopped in front of the television. You said it happens at the exact same time? 3:17 a.m., Kara nodded. Numbers matter to it. 317, prime numbers. That's a signature. It's leaving breadcrumbs. Reed plugged in a small device to the outlet near the TV. This will record energy fluctuations, electromagnetic interference, and ambient temperature changes. Kara watched, still unsure whether to be relieved or more afraid. Do you know what it is? She asked. I've seen similar manifestations, he said carefully. I call them echo entities. They're like recordings of pain, fear, trauma, trapped in a loop. But this one's active. It's not just echoing. It's reacting, learning. Kara felt her throat tighten. What does it want? That depends, he said, placing a sensor on the TV screen itself. Some of them want release. Some want recognition. But the worst ones? They want to be remembered, to be seen. He turned to her. You've seen it now. It knows you know. That night, Kara and Reed set up cameras in the living room, bedroom, and hallway. They lit white candles, spread salt across doorways and windowsills, and Reed muttered something under his breath in Latin before switching off the lights. Whatever happens, he said, do not speak to it. Don't engage. Kara nodded. They waited. 2:58 a.m. The air pressure in the room dropped suddenly. The temperature reading on Reed's tablet fell from 71 to 52 in under 10 seconds. Luna darted under the couch. 3:13 a.m. The hallway light flickered. 3:15 a.m. Kara's breath fogged in front of her. Reed's EMF reader screeched. 3:17 a.m. The TV turned on. Neither of them had touched it. It was still unplugged. The screen didn't show static this time. It showed Kara's apartment door, as if viewed from the hallway. The same door they sat behind. The camera feed zoomed in slowly. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks echoed from the front door. Kara's heart jumped. Reed motioned for her to stay still. On the screen, the door creaked open. There was no one outside, just darkness. And then, from that darkness, something began to crawl into the apartment. It didn't walk. It slithered jerkily like broken animation, long limbs dragging across the wood floor. Its face was featureless, except for a hole where its mouth should be. A gaping, endless mouth that twitched unnaturally. On the screen, the creature moved through the apartment, heading toward the living room. In real life, there was silence, until the floor behind them creaked. Reed turned on his flashlight and swept the beam across the hallway. Nothing. The screen flickered. The creature now stood in the exact spot Kara was sitting. Then it raised one long, thin finger and pointed at her. The television shut off. Reed jumped to his feet. It's breached the veil. This isn't a recording anymore. What does that mean? Kara's voice shook. It's trying to manifest fully. It's using the screen as a mirror. A door. Kara ran to the breaker box and flipped every switch. The apartment plunged into darkness. But when she turned back, the TV was still on. And on the screen, the creature's face had changed. It was hers, distorted, hollow-eyed, grinning. Reed pulled a small vial from his bag and smashed it at the base of the television. A sharp hiss filled the air, like acid on metal. The screen cracked, spiderwebbed, and the TV finally went dark. Not powered off, dead. Kara fell to the floor, trembling. I've never seen one that strong, Reed muttered. We need to find out why it's here. Why you? That morning, they left the apartment. Reed insisted she not return until they understood the origin. They went to a nearby diner, and Reed pulled out his notebook. Tell me everything about this place. When did you move in? 6 months ago. The place was empty for years before that. I got it cheap. Reed nodded slowly. Who lived here before? Kara hesitated. I don't know. They went to the county records office. Apartment 3B had a long history, but one record stood out. Margaret Delaney, age 68, lived alone, died in the apartment in 1981. Cause of death, undetermined. Police report listed her as delusional, claiming the TV was watching her. She reportedly stopped sleeping, covered all the mirrors in her unit, and was found dead sitting in front of a static-filled television at 3:17 a.m. Kara stared at the report, her stomach twisting. She died at the same time the TV turns on. Reed frowned. It's repeating the trauma. Like I said, an echo. But if it's taken form, that means it's grown stronger. Something else may be feeding it. Kara remembered something. My neighbor, in 3, moved out a few weeks ago. Said the walls were too thin. He looked scared. Said he heard voices at night through the vents. Reed stood. We need access to that unit. They went to the building manager, who refused to unlock the door without official request. So Reed did what any desperate investigator would do. He picked the lock. Inside 3A, the apartment was quiet, dusty, empty. But behind the wall shared with 3B, they found something disturbing. Dozens of VHS tapes stacked in the closet, all unlabeled. A small portable TV sat on the floor, its power cord cut. Reed plugged in a battery-powered VHS player and popped in a tape. The footage was dark, grainy, but it showed apartment 3B, Kara's apartment from the early 80s. Margaret Delaney sat in a chair, eyes wide, mouth slack, watching her TV. Then, slowly, something began to appear on the screen, a face. Not hers. Something else. Margaret screamed and tried to run, but the tape cut out. Another tape, then another. Each one showed different people, always in 3B, reacting with growing fear. It was like the apartment had been used for something, a study, a trap. But who recorded them? That's when Reed opened the final tape. And Kara froze. It showed her, sleeping on the couch, from inside the apartment. Last week, she backed away from the TV. Reed stared at the screen in disbelief. These aren't just hauntings, he said. Someone or something has been watching. For decades. Recording. Feeding off fear. The TV suddenly turned to static. And from that static, the whisper came again. 3, 1, 7. Kara didn't remember leaving the room. One moment she was standing in front of the old TV, the image of herself asleep, flickering in grainy gray. The next, she was in the hallway outside apartment 3A, leaning against the wall, gasping for breath like she'd run a marathon. Reed stepped out behind her, locking the door again out of reflex. We need to destroy those tapes, he said quietly. Burn them. Every single one. But Kara wasn't listening. Her ears were still ringing with that whisper. 3, 1, 7. Not a voice from the room. Not from the tape. It had come from inside her head. That night, she didn't go home. They stayed at a hotel, just a few blocks away, but far enough that she could sleep without flinching at every creak of floorboards. Reed reviewed the footage from the investigation while Kara sat on the edge of the bed, petting Luna absent-mindedly, her mind drifting. Do you think Margaret Delaney is still in there? She asked. Reed looked up. I think whatever she saw, whatever happened to her, left a psychic scar. One that never healed. He hesitated. But what worries me more is that this doesn't feel isolated. What do you mean? Reed turned the tablet to face her. He pulled up archived police reports. One's not tied directly to 3B, but to other locations. Other apartments. Other people. They all reported the same thing. A television that turned on at 3:17 a.m. A shadowy figure on the screen. A whisper. A disappearance. Every few years, Reed said. A new case. A different city. But the same pattern. Someone records it. Someone sees the reflection. Then they vanish. He pointed to one from 2006. A woman in Nevada reported missing after telling friends her TV was showing her things. Another from 1993. A teenager in Chicago, last seen panicked, telling classmates the screen was trying to talk to her. Some of them were dismissed as delusions, Reed said. Others just dropped off the radar. Kara leaned forward. Are you saying this thing travels? Not physically, he said. Through the image. Through the recording. Every time it's captured, on camera, on tape, it spreads. Like a virus. Kara's blood ran cold. You mean like if I uploaded the video I recorded? Reed nodded slowly. You'd be transmitting it. Broadcasting the door. Kara felt sick. I sent it to Jordan. Then Jordan's already in danger. She grabbed her phone and called him. No answer. Again. Still nothing. She texted, "Don't watch the video. Please. It's dangerous. I'm serious. Call me." No response. "Where does he live?" Reed asked. "Not far. He's a few blocks down on Baldwin." They didn't wait. It was past midnight when they arrived at Jordan's apartment building. His windows were dark, the building quiet except for the buzzing of a flickering hallway light. "Kara kunokit." No answer. "Jordan," she called. "It's me. Open up." Still nothing. She pulled out the spare key he'd once given her, a safety precaution from when they dated. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the door. Inside, the apartment was cold. Too cold. Luna hissed at her carrier. The TV was on. Static filled the room. But it wasn't white noise. It sounded like breathing. A low, rasping inhale and exhale, like someone was pressed up against a microphone. "Karasite put kalusiv." The image on the screen shifted. It was Jordan's living room, but from a different angle, like someone had been watching him from behind the couch. Then movement. In the footage, Jordan stood in the kitchen, unaware of the camera. He turned, startled, staring directly into the lens, as if he suddenly realized he was being watched. Then, behind him, the shadow began to rise. It didn't walk. It stretched, its limbs growing too long, its movements jerky and unnatural. Jordan backed away, mouthing something Kara couldn't hear. Then, with a flicker, the footage cut out. The screen returned to static. "Karakalach harchist." "We're too late," she whispered. Reed scanned the apartment. "There's no sign of a struggle," he said. "No signs of forced entry." "Because it doesn't need to break in," Kara said. "It's already inside." Reed turned the TV off, this time unplugging it from the surge protector entirely. But even unplugged, Kara swore she could still hear something. A low hum, almost like murmuring. When they checked Jordan's laptop, they found a video, file still open. He'd been analyzing it, paused on a frame of the shadow in the reflection. He'd written a note in the margin. "Reflection isn't reversed. It's not her reflection. It's someone else." Reed frowned. "That doesn't make sense." He opened the image file and zoomed in. The figure in the TV wasn't Kara. It wore her clothes, had her hair, but the face was slightly off. The eyes were darker, deeper set, and it was smiling. Kara had never smiled in that footage. "This thing, it mimics," Reed said, "but not perfectly, like it's learning how to be human from watching us." "Then why does it keep showing me myself?" Reed's expression turned grim. "Because it wants to become you." The words hit her like ice. They returned to her apartment the next day. The power had gone out during the night, and everything inside felt dead. But the TV was still there, and it was on. Only this time, it didn't show static. It showed a mirror. Kara's living room reflected perfectly. The couch, the hallway, the kitchen, but with one detail that didn't match. She wasn't in it. Instead, standing where she should have been, was the figure, wearing her face, smiling, waving. Then it stepped forward toward the glass until its face filled the screen, and whispered, "Let me in." Kara screamed and grabbed the TV, yanking it down and smashing against the floor. Glass shattered, sparks flew, the image died. Reed rushed to her side. "It's too strong now. Breaking the screen won't stop it." "It's not in the TV anymore," she whispered. "It's in me." Reed hesitated. "We need help." He called someone he hadn't contacted in years, a woman named Mireya, who once worked with him in cases involving hauntings too complex for conventional methods. She answered on the first ring. After a brief exchange in Spanish, he turned to Kara. "She says there's a ritual, a way to seal the breach, but we'll have to go back to where it started." 3B, Kara said. Reed nodded. "But there's something else," he added. "We need to confront it directly. Show it that we're not afraid." "I am afraid," Kara admitted. Reed looked at her. "Then we'll do it anyway." That night, they prepared for the ritual. Candles, mirrors, salt circles, a portable generator, since the power was unreliable. Kara stood in the center of the room, Reed and Mireya forming a triangle around her. They chanted. The air turned thick like molasses. The clock struck 3:17 a.m. The TV, broken and unplugged, turned on. The screen showed Kara again, but this time the reflection moved before she did. It blinked, tilted its head, grinned, then it stepped out of the frame. Not toward the glass, but through it. The lights exploded. Runachist. Maria screamed. The figure stood in the center of the salt circle, mimicking Kara's every movement. Then it opened its mouth. From its throat came the voice of every person it had mimicked before. Margaret, Jordan, others. Layered, groaning, begging. Let me stay. Kara stared into its empty eyes. You can't have me. The entity lunged. But before it could cross the edge of the circle, Mireia poured a vial of white ash across the boundary. The creature screamed, not in pain, but in fury, as if it had been denied something it believed was already its own. Reed chanted louder. The candles flared, and the screen behind them shattered inward, pulling the creature back like a vacuum, like gravity in reverse. One final howl, then silence. The TV went black. Everything went still. Reed collapsed. Mireia staggered. And Kara just stood there, shaking as the last flicker of static faded from the air. Kara didn't sleep for 2 days after the ritual. Even though the TV remained off, its screen shattered beyond use and power disconnected entirely. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching her. As if behind the shards of glass, just beneath the veil of normalcy, something continued to breathe. Wait. Whisper. Reed insisted the breach had been closed. The ritual worked, he told her gently. You saw it pulled back into the screen. The portal collapsed. But what if it was only a piece of it? Kara asked. What if that wasn't the whole thing, just a part that escaped? They had no answers. Mireia had left shortly after the confrontation. She warned them to destroy any remaining devices that had displayed the footage, computers, phones, TVs. Even digital storage had to go. Images hold energy, she said. Even shadows can leave an imprint. So Kara smashed her phone, deleted all online backups, and helped Reed destroy the last remaining tapes from Apartment 3B. The old VHS reels were incinerated in a steel drum behind his office. It felt like a funeral, but instead of closure, a hollow sense of unease settled in. On the 4th day, a letter arrived. There was no stamp, no return address, just her name in red ink, Kara Lorne. Inside was a single photograph, blurry, black and white, slightly overexposed. But she recognized it instantly. It was her apartment's living room. The same angle as the old TV footage. Same shadows. Except now, she wasn't in the image. In her place stood the figure again. Only was clearer now. The smile was sharper. The eyes more human. Too human. On the back of the photo, handwritten in the same red ink, was a single line, "You showed it the way out." She took it to Reed, who examined it carefully. This wasn't printed from a digital file, he said. This is chemical photography, processed in a darkroom. Old school. Someone went through a lot of trouble to send this to you. Or something did, Kara whispered. They scanned the edges for fingerprints. Nothing. No trace of who handled it. But when Reed shone a black light over the paper, faint text appeared beneath the printed image, like watermarks etched by invisible ink. Coordinates. Lat. 40.7489 long. Minus 73.9840. A quick search told them what it was. A condemned television studio. Abandoned since 2008 after a fire gutted most of the main stage. Rumors of hauntings had surrounded it for years. Missing employees, unexplained signal transmissions, flickering screens seen from outside when the power had long been cut. It was called Channel 31, a local news affiliate that had suddenly and mysteriously lost funding. The cause? Internal corruption and broadcast violations. What if this is where it started? Reed asked. Kara stared at the map. Then maybe we can finish it there. They drove out that night. The building sat on the edge of an industrial park, fenced in and surrounded by overgrown grass. Its entrance had been boarded, but the boards were old and brittle. With a crowbar and some patience, they slipped inside. The air was stale, heavy with ash and mold. Rows of disconnected monitors lined the control rooms, their screens long dark, their insides stripped for copper. Dust lay thick across the consoles, broken chairs scattered like debris after a storm. They walked in silence, flashlight beams cutting swaths of weak light through the pitch black. Kara led the way to the main broadcasting room. That's when she saw the clock. Mounted high on the far wall, cracked and hanging slightly askew, its hands pointed to 3:17. Frozen. "Reed," she whispered. "That can't be a coincidence." He nodded uneasily, but before they could say more, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then held steady. Kara spun around. "There's no power here." Reed checked his portable scanner. No current. No EMF spike. Nothing should be on. And yet, every monitor in the room suddenly came to life. One by one, they clicked and buzzed, screens flaring white, then gray, then faces. Not hers. Not anyone they knew, but dozens of people, all staring directly into the lens, all whispering. And then, in unison, they mouthed the same phrase. "You let it out. Now it's watching from inside." Kara stepped back, heart pounding. "Turn it off. Shut it all off." Reed yanked the master switch. The lights died again. Silence fell. Only now, it wasn't complete silence. From somewhere deeper in the building, maybe behind the walls or beneath the floorboards, came a humming. Faint, mechanical, rhythmic. A TV static buzz, layered with whispers. They followed it. Down a narrow corridor marked sub-basement access, employees only. The metal door was warped, dented, as if something had tried to push through from the other side. Reed pried it open. The stairwell beyond descended into total blackness, the temperature dropping sharply with each step. Kara could see her breath. At the bottom, they found it. A long-forgotten studio stage, its lights burned out, its cameras rusted on skeletal tripods. But in the center of the space, bathed in an eerie blue glow, stood one television. Old, boxy, no visible power cord. It was on. Its screen displayed a familiar scene. Kara's living room. But it was empty. Then the camera began to pan, slowly turning toward the hallway. And there, standing in the doorway of her bedroom, was the figure. Only this time, it didn't wear her face. It wore Reed's. Karagaspit. The screen flashed. And for a split second, she saw something else. A mirror image of the two of them, watching themselves watch the screen. A loop. An echo. "This isn't showing the past," Reed said slowly. "It's predicting." And then the figure in the footage smiled and pointed. Right at the camera. Right at them. The TV crackled violently. Sparks erupted from its edges. The smell of ozone filled the room. "Back away," Reed shouted. But Kara couldn't move. Her legs felt cemented in place. Her eyes locked on the screen. The image twisted. Now the room on screen was this basement, and the figure was no longer in her apartment. It was standing behind them. She turned and saw nothing. But the static hiss grew louder, almost deafening. Reed pulled her by the arm. "We need to go. Now." As they ran back through the studio, the screens on the walls began to shatter one by one. Each explosion followed by a split-second image of a different face. Each face, she realized, was someone from the missing persons reports Reed had shown her. The echoes were trapped here, and they were trying to warn them. They burst into the night air, gasping, the door slamming behind them like a gunshot. Outside, Kara dropped to her knees. It was over, but something had followed them. That night, back at her apartment, the power stayed off. Reed insisted on staying awake, watching, guarding. At 3:16 a.m., the air grew cold. At 3:17, the broken TV, still lying in pieces, began to buzz. Kara stared at it, trembling. The pieces, they were moving, realigning, pulling together like magnetized shards. "No," she whispered. No, but it reformed. The screen sparked back to life. A single word appeared on the glass: stay. Kara didn't scream. Not because she wasn't terrified, but because the fear had turned inward, calcifying into a quiet, frozen dread. The word on the screen pulsed softly: stay. White letters on a pitch-black background. She glanced at Reed, who stood motionless near the door, his eyes wide, jaw clenched. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The buzzing grew louder, the static deepening into something like breath. "This shouldn't be possible," Reed whispered. "We destroyed that TV." "We didn't," Kara said slowly. "We only thought we did." The letters on the screen flickered, as though reacting to their words. Then, with a stuttered glitch, new text appeared beneath. "You brought it back. Karastamlet Bakirt." "Reed, it followed us from the studio. It used us." That visit wasn't an exorcism. It was an invitation. He didn't argue. He looked pale, sweat glistening along his hairline despite the cold. It needed new ground. Your apartment was already weak. Maybe the studio was its root. A low hum began to radiate from the walls, like the building itself was vibrating with suppressed energy. Kara covered her ears instinctively. "Make it stop," she said through gritted teeth. "We have to end it. Completely." Reed nodded. "There's one more thing Maria mentioned. A way to trap a residual entity if it's too strong to banish." Kara looked at him sharply. "Trap it, like forcing it into a vessel. An object strong enough to contain memory and emotion. Something old, tied to the location." Kara's breath caught. The original remote. She still had it, a heavy, clunky plastic brick that came with the apartment. She never used it because the buttons stuck and half of them didn't work. But she never threw it away. It was still in a drawer by her bed. They retrieved it carefully, bringing it to the center of the living room floor, where the TV screen buzzed with rising intensity. As Kara held the remote in one hand, the screen seemed to ripple. Reed began drawing a circle of salt around the TV, a containment ritual Maria had sketched out for him. As he worked, Kara placed the remote inside the circle and stepped back. The screen flashed again, this time showing her own face. But not her now. Her from a night she first recorded the 3:17 a.m. footage. Half asleep, confused, standing in her pajamas with a camera in hand. Then it switched. Now it was her as a child. Then as a teenager. Then as she was now, but not quite. Each version of herself slightly off. Wrong expressions. Unnatural blinking. Eyes that didn't track correctly. "Is it mimicking you?" Reed said aloud. "No," Kara said. "It's showing me all the versions it's watched. All the versions it's already taken." Suddenly, the screen began to crack, jagged lines creeping outward like a spiderweb. The word on the display changed once again. "Return." Kara's chest tightened. "It wants me to come back into the screen. Then we force it into the remote instead." Reed poured the last of the salt into a second circle around the remote. He took out a mirror and held it facing the screen. "Entities that thrive on observation can be disoriented by reverse perspective," he said. "Maria told me that too." Kara's eyes stayed on the screen. Her reflection, and its variance, shimmered as though reacting to the mirror. The hum grew shrill, a rising, chaotic frequency like 1,000 voices screaming underwater. Then the lights went out. For several seconds, they stood in total darkness. No basing, no words, no. Then came a single knock. From inside the television. The screen lit up once more. The figure was back. Except now, it wasn't Kara's face. It wasn't anyone's. It was a mask. A featureless, skin-colored porcelain mask. No eyes. No mouth. Just smooth, blank terror. The figure stepped closer in the video feed, the frame tightening around it. As it neared, a trickle of black fluid began leaking from the corners of the screen, like ink or blood, only thicker, glossier. It ran down the sides of the TV, pooling onto the wooden floor. Kara's breath hitched. The smell, it was burnt plastic and rotting wires. "Now!" Reed shouted. "Use the remote." Kara raised the remote and pointed it at the screen. She pressed power. Nothing happened. She pressed it again, Harder. The TV flickered, just a little. Then she pressed input. The screen glitched. The figure paused, tilted its head. Then she pressed rewind. The figure shuddered. The static grew violent. Then she pressed stop. The screen froze. The figure was inches away, its head tilted in curiosity. Kara pressed the final button, record. The TV sparked violently. A burst of static exploded outward like a scream, and then, suddenly, sucked inward. The screen collapsed in on itself, a swirling funnel of dark energy pulling into shadows, the buzzing, the echoes of herself, and the faceless figure. The salt circle flared with a white-hot light, the remote trembling in Kara's hand. Then silence. The screen went dark. The remote in her hand grew warm, then cold. It was over. For real this time. She placed the remote in a lead box Reed had prepared, the kind used for storing radioactive materials, and sealed it shut. They buried it in concrete the next day, inside a vault designed to never be opened again. But that night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., Kara's phone buzzed. A notification. No number. No sender. Just a video file. The thumbnail was black. The duration. Midnight. She opened it, heart pounding. Nothing. Just static. But as she watched, just before she closed it, a single frame flashed. Too fast to see clearly. She scrubbed back, paused it, and looked again. It was her. Sleeping. But not in her current bedroom. It was a different room, one she didn't recognize. The timestamp said, next week. Kara didn't sleep that night. She sat on the couch, the concrete thick silence of the apartment pressing down on her like invisible hands. Reed had offered to stay, but she told him no. She needed to face it. Alone. She played the video file again. That single frame, the unfamiliar bedroom, her sleeping form, was burned into her vision. No matter how long she stared, she couldn't place the room. The curtains were different. The wallpaper had a pattern she'd never seen before. And worst of all, she was wearing clothes she didn't own. Kara checked her phone's metadata. No trace of where the video came from. No IP. No sender. No up. It was just there. Her clock struck 3:15 a.m. 2 minutes until the cursed time. She closed every app, turned her phone off, placed it face down. No sound. No screen. No signal. But her TV, her new TV, untouched since the last incident, suddenly gave a low, electric crack. A whisper of energy. The kind you feel on your skin before a thunderstorm. She stared at it. It was off. Just a blank, glossy surface reflecting her weary expression. And yet, for a split second, her reflection blinked, but she didn't. Her heart froze. She slowly reached for the remote, the new one, not the sealed one, and placed it on the floor. Then she walked over and unplugged the TV from the wall. No chance of miscommunication. Still, the screen stayed on. Dim gray, like fog behind glass. A message began to appear, fading in like breath on a mirror. We never left. Kara backed away slowly. No, she whispered. You were contained. You were trapped. You're gone. The screen glitched just once, and the fog shifted into an image. It was the same room from the video. That other bedroom. Only this time, the bed was empty. The camera panned slightly on its own, as if looking for her, as if she were expected, as if her absence disrupted something's plan. Suddenly, from her kitchen, a noise, a soft scrape, a drag, like a chair being pulled across tile. She ran to check, but the kitchen was empty. Except now, on her table, lay an object, a picture frame, but she had no photos displayed in frames. With trembling fingers, she picked it up. The image was of her, again, but in that same unfamiliar room. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, head down. The timestamp at the bottom corner, 3:17 a.m., tomorrow. A breath caught in her throat. She didn't own this photo. She had never seen it before. But it was real, printed, framed, and sitting in her home. They were showing her the future. Or worse, a reality already set in motion. She grabbed her coat, keys, phone, and bolted. She didn't care if it was the middle of the night. She had to get out, but the hallway outside her door had changed. The walls were the same shade as in the photo, that same floral pattern. Her apartment building didn't have wallpaper. The air smelled like dust and copper. She turned back toward her door, but it was gone. In its place, a wall. No doorknob, no number, no trace it had ever been there. She walked down the hall, every step echoing longer than it should have, the air getting colder. At the end of the hallway stood a door. Apartment 5C. But this wasn't her building. Her complex had no fifth floor. Still, the number was there, gold-plated, slightly crooked. Just like the one in the original urban legend she'd read about online weeks ago. The one she dismissed as internet creepypasta. Kara hesitated, and then, as if pulled by something beyond logic, she opened the door. It wasn't locked. Inside was the room. The one from the photo, from the video, from the dreams. She stepped in. The door closed behind her and vanished. For a moment, there was nothing. Stillness. That eerie, weightless feeling like the air didn't quite belong to Earth anymore. Then the TV clicked on. Kara turned. On screen was her apartment, present time. She could see her furniture, her sofa, her coffee cup still half full, and her reflection, sitting in it, watching her, except she wasn't moving. The version of her on the screen sat perfectly still, staring forward with unblinking eyes. A puppet, a doll, a shell. She screamed, but no sound came out. She banged on the walls. They didn't move. She was trapped inside the feed. Not a ghost world. A mirror. Somewhere, somehow, she had become the broadcast. 3 days later, Reed returned to Kara's apartment. The door was unlocked. The coffee was stale. The couch cushions disturbed like someone had just left. But Kara was gone. No signs of struggle. No note. No calls. Nothing. Except the TV, which now stayed on 24/7, playing a loop of Kara sitting in a room no one could identify. Silent. Unblinking. Sometimes standing. Sometimes walking. Sometimes speaking, but no sound ever came through. The video changed slightly every night at 3:17 a.m. Reed documented it. He tried to show others, but when they looked at the footage, they only saw static. To everyone else, the screen was empty. Only Reed could see her, because only Reed knew. One night, he returned again, desperate, guilty, determined to bring her back. He pressed record on his phone, set it in front of the TV, and stepped closer. "Kara," he whispered, "if you can hear me, I'm going to join you. I'm going to get you out. I promise." The screen flickered. Kara stood up in the feed. She lifted one hand, pointed to the left side of the screen. Reed turned his head and saw the mirror, hanging on the wall beside the TV. And in it, Kara, standing behind him. He turned. No one was there. The screen cut to black. Then, welcome back. Final scene: the apartment is now empty. On the outside, it's listed for rent. The ad reads, "Spacious unit with vintage charm. Fully furnished. Smart TV included. Available immediately. Viewings only after 3:30 a.m.